Hello, my fellow investors. In this video, I'll get into Smith&Wesson and why I'm not interested in buying this company. So, Smith&Wesson is I think it's the biggest producer of firearms in the United States. And this is their website. And their products, they have pistols, revolvers, long guns, specialty services, and merchandise. So they have all different kinds of merchandises. But they don't produce ammo. And I'm just bringing this up maybe for a later on point. So I found this company because I really liked their balance sheet. And this is from the last report from fiscal year 2022. And we can see the balance sheet and their assets. So they have total assets of 497 million. And these are solid assets. It's 120 million in cash, 136 in inventory, and the inventory is solid. It's not something that goes obsolete or depreciates. Guns, firearms, they stay the same thing even after 10 years. So there's no loss on inventories or something if they have to keep it inside and can't sell it. And the PPE, 135 million. There's no too much goodwill or intangible assets. So the 497 million of assets is solid assets. And they hardly have any debt. It's 136. It's a beautiful ratio. So that's the first thing I like is I believe we're going into recession, and investing in companies that have a lot of debt before or in a recession is not something very smart. So I like the balance sheet, and I like another thing that came up to me was the growth in the past 20 years. Now, as usual, I did my own spreadsheet, and this is my oldest spreadsheet. My spreadsheet is evolving the whole time. This one I did a long time ago. So I went back, I did all the numbers. Their net revenue in 2003 was 50 million, and in 2012 was 60 million. So basically in 10 years there was no growth. But the first 10 years, I checked also the last 10 years. The first 10 years wasn't good at all, from 2003 to 2012. But from 2012, they had a pretty steady growth from 60 million, and in 2022, they already had 194 million in net revenue. So that's very nice. So if we go in the last 10 years, it's pretty good numbers. The last 20 years, that isn't so good. So a nice growth in the past 10 years, a very good balance sheet. What is my problem with Smith&Wesson? But I just want to point out another thing. In this site, I found the site that has a lot of info. They have over here a few years before. So I started from 2003. Their net revenue, their net income was 50 million. And as we can see, the years before that was very bad. So in 2002, they lost 5 million. And in 2000, they lost 2 million and 1 million. And this number that they write over here, 5 million in 2002, I don't know where they got it, because in their own, this is the 10K from 2004, and we can see that they reported a $10 million loss in 2002. This is 2002, a $10 million loss. So I have no idea why in this website they put a $5 million loss. And that's why I do my spreadsheets alone. I made an entire video why I make my own spreadsheets, and I don't just copy from other websites. But what I'm pointing at is that in my spreadsheet, which starts in 2003, it starts off as $50 million net revenue. But that number was very, very high for exactly that year. And the years afterwards, it was way lower, and the years before, they were losing money. So it isn't... to start off with a very good year isn't a very smart way to analyze a company. But in the last 10 years, it was a pretty steady growth. Now, what's my problem with Smith&Wesson? I have here I found here a website that has here a lot of information. Now, I don't know how accurate this data is, but I have here data for the past 30 years. And also this over here, Smith&Wesson, they're number one in production. And in a lot of websites I checked out, the brand is very strong. They're one of the top, I think, 10 brands in almost any website that I looked for. there's something interesting over here again. I don't know how accurate this data is, because over here they say top 3 companies by firearms unit production in 2002, so 8 million. In their website, and they didn't sell 8 million. I put in all the numbers of the units they sold from 2003. I made here entire spreadsheet. I'll get into this later. But in 2003, they sold 239,000 units, and in 2022, they sold 3.7 million, and in 2021, 5 million, and in 2020, they sold 3 million. So I don't know where they got this data. They sold 8 million. Maybe they're taking in also other products besides their guns and pistols and rifles and everything. They do other products besides firearms. But over here, what I found over here is like this. So firearms manufacturers per 100,000 persons in the United States. In 2000, it was almost 1.4 thousand for each 100,000 people. And in 2020, it's 3.4. But this is what I wanted to see. So this is below is a breakdown of the firearms manufactured in the country over the past 30 years by type. So I'm taking the total firearms. In 1989, according to their data, there was 4.4 million firearms sold. And in the next 10 years, 1999, didn't grow anything. 2008, that's 20 years later, almost any growth. All the growth mainly came in the next 10 years. From 2009 to 2018, from 5 million it went up to 9 million. That's 100% growth. So basically in 20 years, there was no growth. All the growth came the next 10 years, and in 2019, the total firearm sales was 7 million. 7 million total firearms in 2019. And I don't know how accurate this data is, but this is the report themselves, from the ATF. They have here for the past 20 years. So this is the total firearms manufactured domestically by weapons type from 2000 to 2020. In 2000, the total firearms, all the different kinds, was 3.8 million. And you can see over here the same thing. From 2000 until 2008, hardly any growth. So basically in 2009, everything started to grow. And in 2020, the total firearms was 11 million. So over here in 20 years, it's 250% growth. It's not very much. And if I'm thinking of investing in Smith&Wesson, I have to ask myself a question: what's the growth? What kind of growth do I see in the next 10, 20 years in this company? And I just here's like another data of the U.S. population in the past 50 years. So this is this goes by years. This goes from 1950 to 2000. I have also projections for the next years. So in 1998, that's where it started. 1988, 242 million people in the United States. And the current is 338 million. That's about 35% growth in 30 years. So if now they're selling now in 2019 7 million, over here 11 million in 2020. That's how many firearms were sold now. There was 300% growth 250% growth in the past 20 years, and it mainly came doubled in the last 10 years. The U.S. population in the past 30 years grew by 35%. Do I think that Smith&Wesson could triple their sales in the next 20 years? Doesn't make sense, because guns don't appreciate. Maybe a lot of people are buying guns now and they're stacking up on guns and ammo, but basically everyone who wants to buy guns probably bought them in the last 5 years. How can I assume an educated assumption that in the next 10, 20 years, Smith&Wesson is going to tenfold its gun sales? So I'll put this into another perspective. I put here all the numbers going back to 2003. I put the top line is the sales, and then the net revenue and how many units they sold each year, and I just put in the shareholders' equity just to see the company's growth. So as I said, 2003 is a very good year. Their sales was 98 million. In 2022, that's 20 years later, their sales was 864 million. That's beautiful. Not very, very good, but I mean, there's a nice growth. The revenue went up from 50 million in 2022, 194 million. That's a net revenue. That's very nice also. It's a nice growth. But the way it looks to me, and another thing, the units from 239,000 to 3.7 million. So this is the only thing that's constantly growing every single year. 239, 300, 323, 400, 559, 589. And for some reason, from 2009 until 2013, they didn't report how many units they sold. I don't know why. But we could see the growth every single year, almost more or less. 3.3 million, 3.8 million, 3.6, 4.5, 2.8, 2.9. Okay, this is a recession, so the COVID, so they had a decrease in their sales. 5 million, 3.7 million. The way it seems to me is that from 2003 until 2012, Smith&Wesson was basically managed badly. That's the way it seems to me. And from 2013 and 2022, when everything was going good, and that's when they were earning good money, that's when all the growth actually came. Because in 2003 they earned 50 million. This was their good year. In 2012 they earned 60 million. That's the same exact thing in 10 years. No growth. And in 2011 they lost. In 2010 they earned 32 million. And in 2009 they lost 64 million. There's basically no growth from 2003 until 2013. So it seems to me that Smith&Wesson from 2013 until 2022, that's when the good years came. But I don't see this continuing on from 2022 to 2042. If it will take the same multiply that they sold 239,000 units in 2003, and in 2022 they sold 3.7 million. That's 15. That's a 15-fold. It went up in 1,500%. If we'll do the same multiply into 2042 in the next 20 years, that means they'll have to sell in 2042. They have to sell around 54 million firearms each year. That doesn't seem very likely. Guns don't depreciate. The gun that's bought in 2022 is the same exact gun, unless the owner was abusing it, would be the same exact gun another 20 years. Maybe the price will go down, but the gun is still the same gun. So I'm coming back to the point about ammunition. If Smith&Wesson would have sold ammunition, then at least they could have anticipated some kind of growth from the ammo sales. But since they're selling mainly guns and another few products, it doesn't make sense that the company could continue to grow at such a pace in the next 10-20 years. Maybe, I don't know. But it seems very hard to predict such kind of prediction. So that's why I'm not interested in this company. Although the balance sheet is great and the income in the last 10 years is very nice, but it seems impossible to predict what's going to be in this company in the next 10-20 years. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed this video.